The air crackled with the kind of tension that could snap a heart in two. Ellie Harper stood at the edge of her parents' sprawling backyard in suburban Ohio, her pulse hammering as she gripped Mia's hand. She'd spent 25 years dodging this moment, but tonight there was no running. The backyard was a picture of celebration. String lights twinkled above long tables draped in white linen, laughter floated from clusters of relatives, and the scent of grilled steak mingled with summer jasmine. It was her parents' 30th anniversary, a milestone that demanded everyone's presence, including Ellie's. She'd driven 6 hours from Chicago with Mia, her girlfriend of 2 years, rehearsing every possible scenario in her head. But nothing could prepare her for the weight of eyes now turning toward them. Mia squeezed her hand, her dark eyes steady. "You've got this," she whispered, her voice a lifeline. At 26, Mia Alvarez was a force, confident, sharp-witted, and unapologetically herself. Her long black hair was loose tonight, framing a face that could silence a room with a smile. Ellie, with her short, tousled brown hair and nervous energy, felt like a storm beside Mia's calm. "Ellie," her mother's voice cut through the chatter. Diane Harper, poised in a cream dress, waved her over with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Come say hello to Aunt Linda." Ellie's stomach twisted. Aunt Linda was the family's unofficial morality police, her tongue sharper than the knives on the buffet table. They crossed the lawn, hands still clasped, drawing curious glances. Ellie's younger brother, Jake, shot her a grin from the drink table, but her father, Tom, stood stiffly by the grill, his gaze fixed on the coals. She could feel the weight of his silence, heavy as the humid air. "Linda, this is Mia," Ellie said, her voice steadier than she felt. "My girlfriend." The word landed like a stone in a still pond, rippling through the nearby guests. Linda's smile froze, her eyes flicking to their joined hands. "Oh," Linda said, her tone clipped. "How modern." The word was a dagger, and Ellie felt it twist. Mia's grip tightened, grounding her. Dinner was a blur of small talk and forced smiles. Ellie pushed mashed potatoes around her plate, hyper-aware of every glance, every whisper. Mia, ever the diplomat, charmed Jake with stories of her work as a graphic designer, but the older relatives kept their distance. Ellie's cousin Sarah leaned over at one point, murmuring, "You're brave bringing her here." Brave or reckless, Ellie wasn't sure. As dessert was served, lemon cake, her mother's specialty, the clinking of a glass silenced the crowd. Tom stood, his broad shoulders squared, holding a flute of champagne. Diane joined him, her face a mask of practiced warmth. This was it, the anniversary toast. Ellie's heart thudded. She'd heard her father's toasts before. Sentimental, predictable, full of gratitude for family and faith. But tonight something felt off. 30 years, Tom began, his voice carrying over the backyard. 30 years of love, commitment, and God's grace. Diane and I built this family on values, hard work, loyalty, and tradition. His eyes swept the crowd, landing briefly on Ellie. She froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "We've faced challenges," he continued, "but we've always held fast to what's right, to what's true." Diane nodded, her lips tight. "And sometimes that means making hard choices, choices that protect the family." Ellie's breath caught. Mia's hand found hers under the table, a silent anchor. The air felt thicker now, the string lights dimming in her vision. Tom's voice hardened. "We've raised our children to honor our values. But when those values are defied, we must stand firm." A murmur rippled through the guests. Ellie's pulse roared in her ears. She glanced at Jake, who looked as confused as she felt. Linda, though, nodded approvingly, her arms crossed. "Ellie," Tom said, his voice cutting through the haze. All eyes turned to her. "You've made choices we cannot condone. You've brought this," he gestured vaguely toward Mia, "into our home. We've prayed, we've talked, and we've decided. You are no longer welcome in this family." The words hit like a fist. Gasps erupted around the table. Ellie's vision blurred, her chest tight. Mia's hand was the only thing keeping her tethered to the moment. Disowned. The word echoed in her mind, sharp and final. She wanted to scream, to run, to disappear. But Mia's voice broke through, low and fierce. You don't get to define her worth, Mia said, standing, her chair scraping against the patio. Every head turned. Ellie is more than your judgment. She's stronger than you know. The backyard fell silent, the weight of Mia's words hanging in the air. Ellie looked at her, tears stinging her eyes, and saw something unbreakable. A love that didn't flinch even now. But as her father's face darkened and her mother looked away, Ellie knew this was only the beginning. The silence shattered like glass. Ellie's heart pounded as Mia's words hung in the air, defiant and raw. Around the table, relatives shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between Ellie, Mia, and Tom, whose face was a storm cloud ready to break. Mia, sit down, Diane said, her voice tight but polite, the kind of tone she used to smooth over family disputes. But this wasn't a dispute over who got the last slice of cake. This was Ellie's life, her love, her place in the world she'd known since childhood. Mia didn't sit. She stood taller, her dark eyes locked on Tom. No, you don't get to erase her because she loves differently than you want. Her voice was steady, but Ellie could see the slight tremble in her hands. Mia was fearless but not invincible. Ellie's throat burned. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but the weight of her father's words, disowned, pinned her to her chair. She glanced at Jake, hoping for an ally. His jaw was tight, his eyes on his plate. He was only 22, still living under their parents' roof, still shaped by their rules. She couldn't blame him for his silence, but it stung. Let's not ruin the evening, Diane said, her smile strained. This is a celebration. She gestured to the crowd, as if willing them to resume their chatter. But the guests were frozen, caught in the drama unfolding before them. Tom's voice cut through again. This isn't about love. It's about right and wrong. We raised you better, Ellie. We raised you to follow God's path. Ellie's chest ached. She'd heard those words before, sermons at church, lectures at dinner, but never like this, never as a blade aimed at her heart. She stood, her legs shaky, and faced her father. This is my path, she said, her voice cracking but firm. Mia is my home. A few guests gasped. Linda muttered something under her breath, her disapproval palpable. But Ellie didn't care. For the first time she felt the truth of her own words sharp and clear. Mia was her home, her laughter, her late-night talks, her quiet strength. No one could take that away. Tom's face reddened. You're choosing her over your family? I shouldn't have to choose, Ellie shot back. The words felt like a release, like a dam breaking. You're the ones forcing this. Diane stepped forward, her hands raised as if to calm a storm. Ellie, please. Let's talk about this later privately. But her eyes betrayed her. There was no room for compromise there, only a plea to keep up appearances. Mia took Ellie's arm gently. Let's go, she murmured. You don't need to do this alone. But before they could move, Jake stood, his chair scraping loudly. This is bullshit, he said, his voice low but carrying. The crowd stilled again. Jake rarely swore, especially not in front of their parents. Ellie's your daughter. She's my sister. You don't get to just throw her away. Tom's eyes narrowed. Stay out of this, Jake. No, Jake said, stepping closer to Ellie. You're wrong, Dad. You're so caught up in your rules, you're forgetting what family means. For a moment Ellie thought she saw her father falter, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. But it vanished as quickly as it came. Enough, Tom said. This conversation is over. Ellie's heart sank. She looked at her mother, hoping for a sign of softness, but Diane's face was unreadable, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. The rest of the family was a blur. Some avoided her gaze, others stared with pity or judgment. She felt exposed like a nerve laid bare. Mia tugged her gently toward the gate. Come on, she said, her voice soft but urgent. Ellie followed, her legs heavy, her mind reeling. As they passed the decorated table, the banner with 30 years fluttered in the breeze, mocking the celebration they were leaving behind. Outside, the night air was cool, a stark contrast to the suffocating tension of the backyard. Ellie leaned against Mia's car, her breath shaky. I didn't think it would hurt this much, she whispered. Mia pulled her into a hug, her arms steady and warm. "I know," she said. "But you were so brave in there. You stood up for us." Ellie buried her face in Mia's shoulder, tears spilling over. "What do I do now? They're my family." "They're not your only family," Mia said, pulling back to meet her eyes. "You have me. You have Jake. And we'll figure this out together." Ellie nodded, but the ache in her chest didn't ease. She glanced back at the house, its warm lights spilling onto the lawn. Somewhere inside, her parents were probably explaining her absence to the guests, spinning a story to save face. She felt like a stranger in her own life. As they drove away, the Ohio suburbs blurring past, Ellie's phone buzzed. A text from Jake. "I'm sorry. I'll talk to them. You're still my sister." Her heart lifted just a fraction. Maybe not all was lost. But as Mia reached for her hand, Ellie knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The highway stretched endlessly before them, a ribbon of asphalt under a starless Ohio sky. Ellie stared out the passenger window, the hum of Mia's old Honda the only sound breaking the silence. Her parents' words echoed in her mind, disowned, not welcome, each syllable a fresh wound. Mia glanced over, her face softened by the dashboard's dim glow. "You okay?" she asked, though they both knew the answer. Ellie managed a nod, her throat too tight for words. She clutched Jake's text in her mind like a lifeline. "You're still my sister." It was something, but not enough to fill the void left by her parents' rejection. They stopped at a gas station outside Columbus, the neon lights harsh against the night. Mia filled the tank while Ellie wandered inside, her reflection pale in the glass doors. She grabbed 2 coffees, the bitter smell grounding her. At the counter, an older woman with kind eyes rang her up. "Rough night, hon?" she asked, her voice gentle. Ellie forced a smile. Something like that. She wanted to spill everything, her parents' toast, the stunned faces, Mia's fierce defense, but the words stayed locked inside. She paid and returned to the car, handing Mia a cup. "Thanks," Mia said, taking a sip. She leaned against the car, her dark hair catching the fluorescent light. "You don't have to talk yet. But when you're ready, I'm here." Ellie nodded, her chest loosening slightly. Mia had always been her safe harbor, the one who could read her silences. They'd met 2 years ago at a Chicago art gallery, where Mia's bold designs had drawn Ellie in, and their first conversation, about everything from Frida Kahlo to bad reality TV, had lasted hours. Now that bond felt like the only solid thing in Ellie's unraveling world. Back on the road, Ellie finally spoke. "I thought they'd come around, you know? Maybe not right away, but eventually." She twisted her hands in her lap. "I didn't expect this." Mia's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed soft. "They're wrong, Ellie. Not you. You don't have to carry their shame." "But it's my family," Ellie said, her voice breaking. "They're supposed to love me no matter what." Mia reached for her hand, her touch warm and steady. "Sometimes family isn't blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose you who fight for you." Ellie wanted to believe her, but the ache was too raw. She thought of her childhood, Sunday dinners, her dad teaching her to ride a bike, her mom's hugs after a bad day. Those memories felt tainted now, overshadowed by the cold finality of her father's words. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Jake. "Mom's crying. Dad's pissed. I'm trying to talk to them. Hang in there." Ellie's heart twisted. Jake was trying, but what could he do against their parents' conviction? She typed a quick reply, "Thanks. Love you," and put the phone away. They reached their Chicago apartment just after midnight. The familiar space, bookshelves stuffed with art books, Mia's sketches pinned to the walls, felt like a refuge. Ellie dropped onto the couch, exhaustion settling into her bones. Mia sat beside her, close but not crowding, giving her space to breathe. "Do you think they'll ever change?" Ellie asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mia hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I don't know. Some people cling to their beliefs like lifelines. But Jake's on your side. That's a start." Ellie leaned into her, resting her head on Mia's shoulder. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if I lose them for good?" "You won't lose yourself," Mia said fiercely. And you won't lose me. We'll build something new, something better. The next morning, Ellie woke to the smell of pancakes. Mia was in the kitchen, humming softly, her hair tied back as she flipped batter on the griddle. It was such a normal moment, yet it felt profound after the chaos of the night before. Ellie watched her, marveling at how Mia could make the world feel safe, even now. They ate in comfortable silence, the weight of the previous night lingering but softened by the morning light. Ellie's phone stayed quiet. No calls from her parents, no apologies. She tried not to let it sting. Instead, she focused on Mia, on the life they'd built together in this small, messy apartment. Midway through breakfast, Ellie's phone lit up with an email from Sarah, her cousin. "Hey, I'm sorry about last night. What Uncle Tom did was awful. I'm here if you need to talk." Ellie's eyes stung. Sarah had always been the quiet one, but her words carried weight. Maybe she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. "I want to call Jake," Ellie said suddenly. "I need to know what's happening back there." Mia nodded, setting down her fork. "Do it. I'll be right here." Ellie dialed, her heart racing. Jake picked up on the second ring. "Ellie," he said, his voice strained. "I'm glad you called. It's a mess here." "What's going on?" she asked, gripping the phone. "Dad's doubling down," Jake said. "He's saying you made your choice. Mom's quieter, but she's not fighting him. I told them they're wrong, but they're not listening." Ellie's throat tightened. "Thanks for trying, Jake." "I'm not giving up," he said. "You're my sister. I don't care what they say." When she hung up, Mia was watching her, concern etched on her face. "He's fighting for you," she said. "That's something." "Yeah," Ellie said, her voice thick. "But it's not enough." She looked at Mia, her anchor, and felt a spark of determination. "I need to fight for myself too." Ellie spent the next few days in a haze, caught between grief and defiance. The apartment, once a sanctuary, felt too small, its walls closing in with every unanswered call to her parents. Mia was her constant, her touch a reminder that love could still be steady, even when everything else crumbled. On Wednesday, Ellie sat at their kitchen table, staring at her laptop. She'd taken the week off from her job as a high school art teacher, claiming a family emergency. The irony wasn't lost on her. She opened an email draft, her fingers hovering over the keys. She wanted to write to her parents, to pour out her hurt, her anger, her hope. But every sentence felt wrong, too pleading, too furious, too weak. Mia slid into the chair beside her, a mug of tea in hand. "Still stuck?" she asked, her voice gentle. Ellie sighed, closing the laptop. "I don't know what to say. They made their choice, but I keep thinking maybe there's a way to change their minds." Mia's eyes softened, but there was a firmness there too. "You can't force them to see you. Not yet. But you can show them who you are, strong, happy, whole." Ellie nodded, though doubt gnawed at her. She'd always been the good daughter, the one who followed rules, who made her parents proud. Coming out to them last year had been her first rebellion, and she'd hoped time would soften their edges. Instead, it had sharpened them. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Sarah. "Can we meet? I'm in Chicago for work. I want to talk." Ellie's heart lifted. Sarah had always been kind but distant, bound by the family's unspoken code of conformity. Maybe she was breaking free too. They met at a small coffee shop in Wicker Park, its exposed brick walls and warm lighting a stark contrast to the sterile tension of the anniversary party. Sarah was already there, her blonde hair tucked into a messy bun, her eyes nervous but warm. She stood to hug Ellie, a gesture that felt like a lifeline. "I'm so sorry," Sarah said as they Saturday. "What happened at the party, it was cruel. I couldn't believe Uncle Tom said that in front of everyone." Ellie's throat tightened. "Thanks for saying that. I didn't expect it to go that far." Sarah leaned forward, her voice low. "I talked to Jake. He's furious with them. And Aunt Diane, she's not as cold as she seems. She cried all night after you left." Ellie's heart stuttered. "She did." Sarah nodded. "She's torn, Ellie. She loves you, but she's caught in Uncle Tom's world. He's always been the one calling the shots." Ellie sipped her coffee, the bitterness mirroring her thoughts. I don't know how to reach them. I don't even know if I want to. You don't have to decide now, Sarah said. But don't give up on yourself. You and Mia, you're good together. Anyone with eyes can see that. The words warmed Ellie, a small spark in the cold. She told Sarah about Mia, about their life in Chicago, their dreams of opening a small art studio someday. Sarah listened, her smile growing. For the first time in days, Ellie felt seen, not as a disappointment but as herself. When she got home, Mia was sketching at the dining table, her pencil moving in swift, confident strokes. Ellie watched her for a moment, struck by how beautiful she was. Not just her face but her spirit, her unyielding belief in them. She sat beside her, resting her head on Mia's shoulder. Sarah's on our side, Ellie said. And Jake's trying. Maybe there's hope. Mia set down her pencil, turning to face her. There's always hope. But it's not your job to fix them. You just keep being you. Ellie kissed her soft and slow, letting the warmth of it ground her. I love you, she whispered, the words a vow. That night, Ellie finally wrote the email. She kept it short, her words raw but honest. Mom, Dad, I'm hurt but I'm not giving up on us. I love Mia and I love you. I hope one day you can see that. She hit send before she could second-guess herself, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and relief. The next morning she woke to a reply from her mother. Ellie, I'm sorry for how things happened. I need time. Please don't hate us. It wasn't much, but it was a crack in the wall, a sliver of light. Ellie showed it to Mia, who squeezed her hand. It's a start, Mia said. And we'll take it one step at a time. Ellie nodded, feeling the stirrings of resolve. She wasn't just fighting for her parents' acceptance. She was fighting for herself, for the life she wanted, for the love she deserved. And with Mia by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Weeks passed and the silence from Ellie's parents grew heavier, a weight she carried even in her busiest moments. Her mother's email had been a flicker of hope, but no further messages followed, and her father's absence in her inbox was deafening. Ellie threw herself into her work, teaching her students to find beauty in chaos, while her own life felt like a canvas torn in two. Mia noticed the strain. She'd catch Ellie staring out the window, her eyes distant, and pull her into a hug or distract her with a bad joke. One evening, as they cooked dinner together, spaghetti with Mia's homemade marinara, Mia set down her wooden spoon and faced Ellie. You're carrying too much, she said. Talk to me. Ellie sighed, stirring the sauce. I keep waiting for them to call to say they're sorry. But what if they never do? Mia's expression softened. Then you keep living. You keep loving. You don't need their permission to be happy. Ellie nodded, but the words felt like a bandage on a wound that wouldn't heal. She wanted her family back. Not the judgment but the warmth, the history, the sense of belonging. She missed her mom's laugh, her dad's bad puns. She even missed Jake's annoying habit of stealing her fries. A breakthrough came unexpectedly. Jake called one Saturday, his voice bright with news. I got through to Mom, he said. She wants to meet you. Just her, not Dad. She suggested coffee in Columbus next weekend. Ellie's heart leapt, then sank. What about Dad? Jake hesitated. He's not there yet. But Mom's trying, Ellie. She's really trying. The following weekend, Ellie drove alone to Columbus, her stomach knotted with nerves. Mia had offered to come, but Ellie needed to face this herself. The coffee shop was small, tucked between a bookstore and a bakery, its windows fogged with autumn chill. Diane was already there, sitting by the window, her hands wrapped around a mug. Ellie, Diane said, standing as she approached. Her eyes were tired, but there was a warmth there Ellie hadn't seen in months. They hugged, awkward but genuine, and sat. I'm sorry, Diane said, her voice trembling. That night it was wrong. Your father thought he was protecting the family, but he broke it instead. Ellie's throat tightened. Why didn't you stop him? Diane looked down, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. I was scared. Of him, of change, of what people would think. But I've been thinking about you every day. I miss you. The words hit Ellie like a wave, equal parts relief and pain. I miss you too, she said. But I'm not leaving Mia. She's part of me now. Diane nodded, her eyes glistening. I know. I saw how she stood up for you. She's good for you. Ellie's breath caught. It wasn't acceptance, not fully, but it was a step. They talked for an hour about small things, Ellie's students, Diane's garden, avoiding the deeper wounds. When they parted, Diane hugged her again, longer this time. I'll talk to your father, she promised. Give him time. Back in Chicago, Ellie told Mia everything, her words tumbling out. Mia listened, her smile growing. See? I told you there was hope. But hope was fragile. Days later, Ellie got a call from Jake. Dad found out about Mom's meeting, he said, his voice tense. He's furious. He's saying she betrayed him. Ellie's heart sank. What does that mean for Mom? She's standing her ground, Jake said. It's messy, but she's fighting for you in her own way. Ellie hung up, her mind racing. She felt torn. Proud of her mother's courage, terrified of what it might cost her. That night, she and Mia lay in bed, the city's hum filtering through the window. What if this tears them apart? Ellie whispered. Mia turned to her, her eyes fierce in the dark. Then that's their choice. Not yours. You're not responsible for their marriage. Ellie nodded, but guilt lingered. She thought of her parents 30 years together, the life they'd built. Had her coming out started a crack that would shatter it all? She pushed the thought away, focusing on Mia's steady breathing beside her. The next day, Ellie decided to act. She wrote a letter to her father, not an email this time, but a handwritten one poured from her heart. Dad, I love you. I always will. But I love Mia too, and I won't apologize for who I am. I hope you can find a way to see me again. She mailed it, her hands trembling as she dropped it in the box. Weeks later, a package arrived. A small box from her mother, containing a photo of Ellie as a child, laughing in her dad's arms. A note was tucked inside. He's struggling, but he kept this on his desk. Don't give up. Ellie held the photo, tears falling. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a sign. And for now, that was enough. Autumn deepened in Chicago, the leaves turning crimson and gold, mirroring the slow burn of change in Ellie's life. The photo from her mother sat on her nightstand, a quiet reminder of a past she wasn't ready to let go. She and Mia settled into a rhythm: work, dinners, late-night talks, but the shadow of her parents' rejection lingered, a bruise that ached with every quiet moment. Jake kept her updated, his calls a lifeline. Mom's pushing Dad, he said one evening. She's been going to a support group, some church thing for parents of queer kids. She's trying to understand. Ellie's heart lifted, but doubt crept in. And Dad? Jake sighed. Stubborn as ever. But he hasn't thrown out your letter. I saw it on his desk, unopened but still there. It was a sliver of hope, thin but sharp. Ellie clung to it, even as she threw herself into her art classes, channeling her emotions into her students' projects. Mia, too, was busier, her freelance design work picking up. They were building a life, piece by piece, but Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. One crisp November morning, Ellie woke to a text from Sarah. I'm hosting Thanksgiving in Columbus. You and Mia are invited. No parents, just cousins and friends. Say yes. Ellie stared at the message, her heart racing. A family gathering without the weight of judgment. It felt like a dream. She showed Mia, who grinned. Let's do it. A real holiday, no drama. Thanksgiving at Sarah's was a revelation. Her small house was packed with cousins, friends, and a few partners, all laughing over turkey and wine. Sarah had gone all out. Candles flickered on every surface, and a playlist of indie folk filled the air. Ellie felt a warmth she hadn't known in months, surrounded by people who accepted her and Mia without question. During dinner, Sarah raised a glass. To chosen family, she said, her eyes locking with Ellie's. To love that doesn't demand you change. The table cheered, and Ellie felt tears prick her eyes. Mia squeezed her hand under the table, her smile radiant. Later, as they helped clean up, Sarah pulled Ellie aside. I talked to Aunt Diane, she said. She wants to see you again, but she's scared of pushing your dad too far. He's softening, I think. He asked about you last week. Ellie's breath caught. He did. Sarah nodded. Just your name, but it's more than he's said in months. Keep holding on. Back in Chicago, Ellie felt lighter, like a weight had shifted. She and Mia started planning their future again. Talks of the art studio, maybe a dog, a life that felt theirs. But the holidays loomed, and with them the question of family. Ellie wanted to see her mother, to build on their fragile connection. But her father's silence was a wall she couldn't climb. On a whim, Ellie called her mother. Diane answered on the first ring, her voice tentative. Ellie? Is everything okay? I want to see you, Ellie said, her heart pounding. Just you if that's easier. Christmas, maybe. There was a pause, then Diane's voice, soft and shaky. I'd like that. Let me talk to your father. He's been reading your letter. Ellie's eyes widened. He has. He hasn't said much, Diane admitted. But he keeps it close. That's something, right? It was. Ellie hung up, her heart a mix of hope and fear. She told Mia, who pulled her into a hug. He's coming around, Mia said. Slowly, but he is. Christmas came and Ellie drove to Columbus again, this time with Mia. They met Diane at a quiet diner, its windows strung with twinkling lights. Diane looked older, her eyes lined with worry, but she smiled when she saw them. They talked, carefully at first, then with more ease, about everything but the anniversary party. Diane asked about Mia's work, about their life in Chicago, and Ellie felt a spark of the mother she'd missed. As they left, Diane pressed a small gift into Ellie's hands. A scarf, knitted in her favorite shade of blue. I made it for you, she said, her voice thick. I love you, Ellie. I'm trying. Ellie hugged her, tears falling. I love you too, Mom. On the drive home, Mia reached for her hand. You're building something new, she said. With her, with Jake, with Sarah. It's not perfect, but it's real. Ellie nodded, the scarf soft against her skin. She thought of her father, of the letter he hadn't answered but hadn't discarded. Maybe he was struggling too, caught between his beliefs and his love for her. For the first time, she felt a flicker of compassion for him, a hope that they could find a way back to each other. Winter settled over Chicago, blanketing the city in snow and quiet. Ellie and Mia spent their days wrapped in routine work, coffee runs, evenings curled up with takeout and old movies. But beneath the calm, Ellie felt a restless hope, fueled by her mother's efforts and the faint possibility of her father's change. One January evening, Ellie's phone rang. It was Jake, his voice urgent. Dad wants to talk, he said. He called me, asked for your number. I think he's ready. Ellie's heart stopped. What did he say? Not much, Jake admitted. Just that he's been thinking. He sounded different. Not angry. Just tired. Ellie clutched the phone, her mind racing. She'd waited months for this, but now that it was here, fear gnawed at her. What if he hadn't changed? What if this was another rejection, softer but no less painful? Mia, sensing her tension, sat beside her. You don't have to do this alone, she said. But you're strong enough to face it, whatever he says. Ellie nodded, dialing her father's number. It rang twice before he answered. Ellie, Tom said, his voice rough like he hadn't spoken in days. I got your letter. She held her breath, waiting. The silence stretched, heavy with years of unspoken words. Finally he spoke again. I've been wrong, he said, each word deliberate. Not about everything but about you. I thought I was protecting you, protecting the family. But I was pushing you away. Ellie's eyes filled with tears. Dad, she whispered, her voice breaking. I just wanted you to see me. I'm trying, he said. Your mother's been relentless. She made me read your letter over and over. I didn't want to, but I did. And I kept seeing you as a little girl. The one I promised to always take care of. You still can, Ellie said, her voice shaky but firm. But you have to accept me, all of me. Mia too. There was another pause, longer this time. I don't understand it, Tom admitted. It goes against everything I was taught. But I don't want to lose you. Can we start somewhere? It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Ellie agreed to meet him with Mia in Columbus the following weekend. The days leading up to it were a blur of nerves and hope. Mia was her rock, reminding her to breathe, to trust herself. The meeting was at a park-neutral ground. Tom stood by a bench, his hands in his pockets, looking smaller than Ellie remembered. Diane was there too, her smile tentative but warm. Mia held Ellie's hand as they approached, a quiet show of strength. "Ellie," Tom said, his eyes meeting hers. "I'm sorry. For the party, for the words, for all of it." Ellie nodded, tears spilling over. "I needed to hear that," she said. "But it's not just words. It's about how you treat me, how you treat Mia." Tom glanced at Mia, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he extended his hand. "Mia," he said, "I don't know you well, but you're important to my daughter. That matters." Mia shook his hand, her grip firm. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady. "I love her. That's not changing." They talked for hours, awkward at first, then easier. Tom asked about their life, their dreams, and Ellie saw glimpses of the father she'd loved. The one who listened, who cared. Diane chimed in, her laughter a balm bridging the gaps. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a beginning. As they drove back to Chicago, Ellie felt lighter, like a burden she'd carried for months had lifted. "He's trying," she said, glancing at Mia. "That's more than I expected." Mia smiled, her hand resting on Ellie's. "You did this. You stood your ground, and you showed them love doesn't bend." Months later, spring brought new warmth. Ellie and Mia hosted a small gathering at their apartment, Jake, Sarah, Diane, and to Ellie's surprise, Tom. He was quiet, still adjusting, but he smiled when Mia showed him her latest design, and he hugged Ellie tightly before leaving. It wasn't perfect, but it was family redefined. Ellie looked around her apartment, at the people who'd chosen her, who'd fought for her. She thought of the anniversary party, of the pain that had nearly broken her. But it hadn't. She'd found her voice, her strength, her home in Mia's love and the family they were building step by step. As she stood by the window watching the city bloom, Ellie felt a quiet certainty. Love wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice, a fight, a promise. And she'd keep choosing it every day with Mia by her side.